Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
Students, till now we have completed 4 chapters: rocks and minerals, living things, bones and muscles, and the nervous system. Today we'll start up with a new chapter, that is safety and first aid. We will be covering part 1 of this chapter today. Please watch the video carefully.
Hello, children, and welcome to a new chapter Safety and First Aid. So, in this chapter, we will be dealing about everything that is to do with first aid and how to administer first aid in times of need. Now, we all know that accidents happen, right? And accidents can happen at any time, anywhere without any warning. Accident is not going to tell you that, hey, I'm going to come right now, so you're going to meet with an accident. So, accidents happen anywhere without any warning. And people do get hurt due to accidents. And sometimes, if it's even more dangerous than that, it can even lead to death. So, this is something that we have to keep in mind, that accidents can be as simple as a tiny scratch, or it can be as deadly as leading to death itself. So, what are the various common reasons because of which we face an accident? The first one is carelessness in the kitchen while using sharp objects like knives, scissors, and blades. You cut yourself, and that can lead to an accident. Or while playing with a lit matchstick or firecrackers, especially during Diwali season, if you are not careful, if you don't use adult supervision while lighting a cracker, it can lead to disastrous accidents, and a lot of burns can happen due to this. Or accidents can happen because somebody is playing with electrical points while trying to put their hands into the socket, or because of electrical appliances. So you should remember that you should keep away from these things, or even if you are using them, use it very carefully. Another main reason because of which accidents happen is carelessness on road. Either while driving or while walking, you need to be aware of your surroundings and drive carefully and slowly, not just rip through the road or run around in the main road. Another main reason why accidents could happen is while climbing trees, while being funny, or while being naughty, when you're running up and down the stairs. These can lead to certain severe accidents. If you slip and fall, you can end up with broken bones. Another very dangerous situation is eating wrong medication. If the doctor has given you or prescribed some sort of medication, you should be very careful and take only that. If you eat wrong medication, this can lead to serious consequences. And the last reason that we think that accidents could happen is at a swimming pool or a pond. While you're swimming carelessly, it can lead to drowning. So, for all these situations, we're gonna see how we can administer first aid. Now, when I say first aid, the first thing that comes to your mind is that yes, accidents happen anywhere at any time without any warning. And when such accidents do happen, you should be aware of what to do and when to do it. So, some people who don't know what first aid is and how to give a first aid, they panic when some accident happens. So, the main goal of this chapter is to educate all of you to make sure that you know what kind of help to give to what kind of injury. So, what is first aid exactly? The immediate help given to a sick or an injured person is called as first aid. This is the immediate help even before calling for help. And what are the main aims of first aid? The first thing is to save their life. Second thing is to make sure that the condition of the person who has been injured or sick does not get worse. You shouldn't worsen the situation for them. And to keep that sick or injured person comfortable till proper medical help arrives. So these are the three main aims of giving first aid. Now, we have to understand when we should give first aid and when we should not give first aid. So, when do we give first aid? We give first aids when the wound is quite small, or there are small cuts or scratches or small burns that happen. But even then, give first aid and call for medical help or an adult supervision. when not to give a first aid. If the injury looks pretty deep, or if it looks very serious, or if the injury is inside the body, the person is not bleeding, but the person is in a lot of pain, that means that there could be something deeper. Suppose a broken bone, for example. We cannot give any first aid for broken bones. In such cases, all that we can do is immediately call for medical help or the nearest adult around you. We will be studying about how to give first aid for various situations, like how to give first aid for cuts and scratches. Then we'll see how to give first aid for broken bones. Then we'll see how to give first aid for sprains, then for animal bites. Then we'll be moving on to nosebleed and how to give first aid for a nosebleed. Then we'll see how to give first aid for burns. And lastly, we'll be speaking about fire and fire accidents. So let's see the first one, cuts and scratches. Now, when you see cuts and scratches, first thing that you need to do is wash your hands thoroughly before you help the person who's been cut or scratched. By washing your hands, you're getting rid of these germs that might enter into that wound of the injured person and cause infection. You don't want that happening, right? You want to help them. You don't want to make the situation worse for them. Second thing, if the cut is quite small, just wash the cut with soap and plenty of water and use a clean cotton cloth to dry it out. And once it's dried out, apply a neat antiseptic cream on it and cover it with a bandage or a plaster. This is applicable only if the wound is small. So you can see here this person is washing and drying it off, then adding antiseptic cream, and then they're putting a plaster. But if the cut is pretty deep and it's bleeding continuously, first wash it off with soap and water and then try to stop the bleeding. So as you can see here, you can stop the bleeding by pressing down on the wound with a clean pad of cotton cloth. So this person's holding a cotton cloth and they're pressing down on the wound till it stops. Now if the wound still continues to bleed, they use something called a tourniquet. So this is a tourniquet here. It is nothing but a wide strip of cloth that is wrapped around the injured area. 3 to 4 times it's wrapped and then it is knotted. And once it's knotted, they put a stick and then tighten it just above the wound so that the blood supply is stopped there, so that bleeding will stop. Now this is done till you reach the doctor. Once you reach the doctor is going to remove it and examine the wound and tell you if it needs to be stitched. If it's very deep cut, then the doctor will suggest that they stitch up the skin so that it heals faster. And an injection called as a tetanus injection is given to prevent very serious diseases. So this is about cuts and scratches. How do you give first aid for broken bones? A bad accident can lead to a crack in your bone, and this is a crack in your bone, and this crack in your bone is called as a fracture. How many of you have undergone a fracture or the pain of a fracture? If you have, then you know exactly what I'm talking about. If you haven't, just pray to God, thank Him that you've never had a fracture. And this fracture is extremely painful and it must be attended by your doctor. There is very little that we can do as a first aid for someone with a fracture. Doctor only has to have a look at it. The only help that we can do is by making sure the part of the body that has been fractured does not move. So you keep that person very still. Suppose if it's a hand that has been broken, you can prepare a sling for them so that the hand is not moved. A sling is made like this with a cotton cloth around the hand that is broken, and this makes sure that the hand doesn't move a lot. Whereas if it's the leg, then you have to give support to the leg and make sure the leg is not moved. But when a trained professional is going to look at it, they put something called as a splint for first aid. What is a splint? A splint is a piece of metal, plastic or wood that is put on either sides of the fractured hand or leg, which prevents it from moving. But the thing to keep in mind is not anybody and everybody can put a splint. A splint must be put only by a trained professional. So they will be trained as to how they have to put a splint. Now we'll move on to sprains. When you see sprain, what is a sprain? When you're playing, if a joint or an ankle gets twisted, we call it as a sprain. It is pretty painful and there is swelling in that area, so this is called as a sprain. So you can see here this girl has just twisted her leg, and inside there is so much pain in that part of the ankle. Now how do you treat a sprain? You keep an ice pack so that the swelling reduces, and this joint should not be moved until the wound heals, and the healing process takes a few days to heal. Now sprains, you can get it anywhere. You can get it in your neck, your back, your ankles, wrist, any joints can get sprained. And to make things better, to ease out the pain, we wrap an elastic
Jazakallahu
bandage
khair.
around the injured area so that we support that area and prevent excess movement of that area. So this is about sprains. So with this we complete part 1 of safety and first aid. Please look up at part 2 to know more. Thank you.